Today's video is a case study, or more actually a life study, of one of the most well-known individuals to suffer from dissociative identity disorder. Christine Chris Costner Sizemore was an individual who suffered from what was then called multiple personality disorder. She is relatively well known because of a movie named The Three Faces of Eve, which was released in 1957 and was loosely based on her life. Mrs. Sizemore was born Christine Costner on April 4th, 1927. Psychiatrists believe that dissociation is a defense mechanism, a reaction to a severe childhood trauma or prolonged physical or emotional abuse. In Miss Sizemore's case, the fragmentation in her mind was supposed to have begun when she was as young as 2 years old. When she was 2, she witnessed a series of particularly gruesome incidents, including her mother being bloodily injured in a kitchen accident by an exploding jar, the funeral of an infant, the dragging of a corpse from a ditch, and a man who was cut in half by a saw at a lumber mill. As she grew older, Mrs. Sizemore said that she was often punished for acts of disobedience or cruelty that she could not remember committing. She was often baffled by tests in school that a different personality had prepared for. She never finished high school. According to her 1977 memoir, I'm Eve, she was scarred further by an early romance with a sadistic man who often beat her. Mrs. Sizemore writes that a severe headache would announce the emergence of a different personality. She began seeing a psychiatrist called Dr. Thigpen when she began alternating between the demure and depressed Eve White and the self-indulgent party girl, Eve Black. This change in personality perplexed her husband as her behavior shifted bizarrely. It was Eve Black who tried to choke Chris Sizemore's 2-year-old daughter, leading her to seek psychiatric help for the first time. The personality, Jane, which was a pleasant and sensible young woman, became manifest during her therapy. She also confessed to hearing a voice which taunted her about her husband, and shortly after this, her marriage ended. Shortly after her first marriage ended, a new one, this time to Don Sizemore, who was an electrician, began. The personalities of Jane, like Eve White and Eve Black, soon died. More personalities manifested themselves, each time in sets of 3. For instance, there was a strawberry lady who was 21 years old and ate strawberries to the exclusion of all else. There was also the banana split girl, who was a temperamental child who would only consume banana splits. There was the purple lady, who was an arthritic 58-year-old who wore white wigs and purple dresses. There was also the virgin, who wore no makeup and could not stand to be touched by her husband. There was also the spoon lady who collected spoons, the blind lady who could not see, and then there was the retrace lady who never liked to take the same route twice. This was all during her second marriage, so I can imagine that at times it must have been quite testing to live with somebody who at one stage was excited to be with you and then the next could no longer stand to touch you. Some personalities could drive and some couldn't, and Chris Sizemore said that they would tend to switch at inopportune times. My interpretation of that is that while she was driving perfectly fine with one personality, another less than skilled driver would take over and possibly cause some incidents. All was not well with Chris Sizemore and her multiple personalities. She endured suicide attempts and struggled to keep jobs in the retail industry in which she worked. As doctors learned more about dissociation, the presumption that its main manifestation was multiple personalities with vastly different traits gave way to an understanding that the divides in a person's identity could be far more subtle. Even so, the way her divided self presented itself was remarkable. Apart from some knowing how to drive and some not knowing how to drive, some of the personalities were skilled in art, and others were skilled in sewing. For instance, she opened a clothing store in Manassas because one of her personalities was an accomplished seamstress. She was also able to sell her art to help support herself, but only when the personality who knew how to draw was present. In an interview, Mrs. Sizemore also said that her personalities dressed differently, talked differently, and ate differently. She said that she once weighed 175 pounds because she was feeding 3 different people in the same body 3 different meals. She saw therapist after therapist, around 8 in total, but attributed her greatest progress to Dr. Tony Tsitos, her 8th doctor, whom she began seeing in 1970. Over a 4-year period of treatment, Dr. Tsitos began the process of integrating the divergent personalities she had developed over a lifetime as a defense mechanism against intensely felt fears and insecurities. Later on, she became a great advocate for mental health, going on to present lectures and workshops, and helping to try and spread awareness about mental health. And that's it for this video. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, drop a like, perhaps subscribe, and similar videos will be coming soon. Thanks for watching.